So our next speaker, there's a bit of a change in the program. Our next speaker is Gary. Who's
That's
joining
right.
me on stage. Oh, well, hello. Gary is talking to us about delivering trusted data products and financial services. There's
Thank
the clicker
you.
for you. Gary, I want to introduce you. Gary Allemann. Allemann, he is the Managing Director at Master Data Management. He is passionate about ICT, particularly data quality, data management, and data governance. So with over 10 years' experience in the field, he has been instrumental in providing specialist solutions for various sectors. Today he's talking about, we have it on the board, delivering trusted data products and financial services. Let's give a round of applause to Gary.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. It's actually 20 years now, so time flies. When I came up, I was thinking about a topic to suggest for this presentation. I actually initially thought I was thinking about something else. And then what kept recurring on LinkedIn in my circles was this concept of data products. And there seemed to be a lot of confusion about what a data product is. And I thought, let me latch onto that conversation and try and answer the question. But it's beyond just data products, it's about trust. And I think we've heard this concept of trust repeated by speaker after speaker after speaker. It doesn't matter what we deliver, if we can't trust it, we're not going to use it, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about delivering trust. So let's start with that question. What is a data product? Where does this concept come from? Well, if you're a chief data officer or you're a chief data and analytics officer, a few years back you were being asked to build data models or you were being asked to implement data governance or whatever it might be. But in the last sort of 2 years, 3 years, particularly since COVID, the focus is more and more on value. How do I monetize data? How do I get value out of data? We're not specifically here talking about selling data. If I'm a bank or an insurance company, I don't want to sell my internal data to a third party. It's got my value and there's privacy implications. But how do I add value to data and how do I deliver this thing called a data product? So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to start with the definition. A data product is a curated and managed asset, right? So that's the bits that I've chosen to highlight in that product. I can put a table or I can put data into my data warehouse. That doesn't make it a data product. That makes it data. For it to be valuable and to make it a product, it needs to be managed, it needs to be curated. I need to be taking care of that data, adding value to that data and making it valuable, right? So some examples, a lot of the focus of this presentation or this whole event has been machine learning and AI models. So those will be things like fraud detection models, prediction models, so which customers are going to buy what kind of product. But it's not just having the model, it's how do I make that model accessible. So part of the confusion comes from the fact that a data product is not just a what, it's a how. Right? So next example, interactive data applications. The best example that I can think of here would be something like Waze or Google Maps, right? I've got a ton of data underneath that in terms of addresses and geocodes and locations, but what they're doing is they're presenting it in a way that makes it incredibly easy for me to pick up my phone, speak an address into my phone, and boy, I get directions, it takes me right there. Right, so it's an interactive data application that makes it easy for a non-technical user to work with data. Data API, so that's really around accessing, in most cases, third-party data. How do I connect to my partners and bring in their customer data? How do I connect to my brokers and bring in a claim? Those kind of APIs, but how also do I connect to third-party data providers that provide, demographics data, location data, credit scoring data. I see one of the vendors here is connecting directly to Home Affairs to do a verification of a customer's identity. So an API is another way of exposing data in a way that makes it easier to use in a consistent way at scale in my corporate environments, data platforms and marketplaces. So the most common examples here is if I go onto AWS or I go into Snowflake, I can actually connect to and buy data directly from multiple third-party vendors integrated directly into my data warehousing or my data analytics environments. But this could also work internally where I want to make data accessible to my team of data scientists. How do I make the data visible to them? One of the customers I'm talking to, a large bank, They've got over 1,000 tables in their enterprise data warehouse. Probably most of you do, right? So it makes it incredibly difficult for a casual user to find the data that they're actually looking for to solve a specific problem, because the data is not well labeled, it's not well understood. You have to find the right person in the right team that actually built the table, right, to find the data you're looking for. So a data marketplace makes it easier to find and use useful data. Another thing that we find quite often is we see a huge focus on specific data sets. So we were working with a customer, again, trying to access customer data. We couldn't quite get the data we wanted, but we could get a fee that gave us 80%. And that's the fee that everybody uses. So that table gets used for everything, but it doesn't really fit anybody's need. So how do we make data more accessible and more useful for specific purposes? We're turning it from a data set into a data product. And then research products. So those would be things like investment advising a platform. So I'm bringing together research from various environments, I'm packaging it, I'm adding some analytics and some insights, and I'm presenting it to users in a useful way. Okay, so as I said to you, it's not just about the what, it's about the how. So some of the characteristics of changing data or data assets into products: the data source is trusted and governed. I know where the data is coming from. I'm confident it's the right source. I'm confident that it's of the right quality, and I'm confident that it's accurate. It doesn't help me to be doing share recommendations on data that's a week old or even an hour old. Probably it's too late, right? Clear ownership and product management principles. So who's responsible for the data product? I'm going to talk a little bit more about product management principles, but what are we talking about there is we're focusing on the customer and we're focusing on a specific use case. So we're not trying to be everything to everybody. We're saying our user is this part of it's the corporate banking team, and they want to use this product to help them to close deals. A really good example of an early data product would have been Liberty Life's Blueprint, right? Where if you were a financial advisor, you worked for Liberty, you had this application that would allow a customer to believe that you were predicting what they needed. It could show them a lot of information in an interactive way. It was a really early example of a data product because you didn't need to be a technology expert to use it. It combines relevant data from multiple sources. One of the biggest challenges we have in corporate, right, still, after 40 years of trying to solve the problem, is how do we consolidate data, bring it together, and make sure we have all the data we need. So going back to the example that I used earlier, yes, we could get access to a data set, but it only actually gave us 80% of the data that we needed, and we had to make do with that because that was what we could get access to. So a data product needs to combine data and bring in, yes, we want the customer data, but in order to do the credit scoring, we also need some demographic data. We need some additional information brought in together and consolidated to give us the product. It's easily discoverable, alluding again to that problem I spoke to earlier. If I can't find it, if it's not accessible, it's not a product. So how do we make our data products, our machine learning models, our dashboards, our data sets, whatever it is we're trying to get commoditized for internal or external use, and make it visible and available and accessible and understandable? Which leads us to the point of data democratization. We're all worried about privacy, I hope. We should be. But at the same time, they shouldn't get in the way of making data inaccessible to the people that do need legitimate access to it. So one of the real challenges is that the first response from the privacy and the compliance team, right, is to lock everything down and make it as difficult as possible to get access to it. And that then inhibits innovation and inhibits the ability to use data to drive opportunities, right? So how do we make data accessible, taking the security and the privacy concerns into account, and it's possible to do that. And then this is really, to me, the core feature. It's immediately useful. It's not a product if I can't use it. So if I had to go into my phone and before I could use Google Apps, I'd have to download the data, clean the data, and it's not a product, right? So how do we make whatever it is that we're doing in the back end as data scientists or as analytics experts or as the data team, and we work with business and with the product owners to make something that is immediately useful and is going to deliver a result quite quickly or immediately. So core purpose, to transform raw data assets into reusable, trusted products that can drive data-driven decision-making, innovation, and insights. And this lies across the board. It doesn't matter whether you're working with old school analytics, whether you're working in the data management space, building a single view of the customer, whether you're delivering advanced analytics and AI. The moment you start to achieve these goals, then you've delivered a product that can be used internally by a broad audience or can potentially be on-sold and deliver value as a sellable product into your consumer market, right? So what steps do we need to deliver trusted data products? Please give me the obligatory groan, right? I've used the word governance or data governance. The reality is that data governance in financial services in this country and probably most countries in the world has been, in my judgment, very poorly implemented. Why? Because it's had a very risk and compliance-oriented implementation approach. It's been very heavy-handed, and fundamentally it's blocked people from working rather than enabling people from working. But if we try to say, well, I need to understand who's responsible for this data, where can I find it, who do I have to ask permission for to access it, can I give permission to this person to access it, should they have access to the data, is it of sufficient quality, is it good enough for the purpose that I want to do it? These are all governance type questions, and governance in this instance is really just the ability to make the right or involve the right people at the right time to make decisions about data to enable the business. And yes, we need to manage the data risk, right? So let's get those governance practices in play to enable. Data literacy programs. A lot of people, frankly, have a very poor understanding of data. I've got to be honest, there's some of the sort of more advanced charts, scatter charts, and the various other more advanced ways of showing data that I really can't understand. Give me a pie chart or a bar chart, I can understand that. So very often we try and we're overwhelming our users with fancy graphics that aren't that useful, aren't easy to understand, or we need to go through a process of training people to understand and make decisions using data. And it's quite interesting because there's statistics that show that only around 22% of people in the workplace really believe that they have confidence, that they understand how to work with data in such a way as to make decisions with it, which is really alarming given that we're in an increasingly knowledge-driven society. But this might then also filter through into when somebody's capturing data, what are the data quality standards? Do they understand the impact of, well, I didn't capture the address, so now when I'm trying to deliver a credit card, where do I deliver it to? Those kind of questions. Data cataloging and data intelligence, this is really around making data accessible. That doesn't mean that I need to capture every piece of data in my environment, that everything needs to be documented to the nth degree. Nobody enjoys doing documentation. Trust me, I don't enjoy doing documentation either. But if we can get some bare minimum standards in place to make data more visible, make it easier to find, and provide some context, that helps us a lot in terms of being able to deliver a product, right? Automated data quality and data masking. So how do we improve the quality of data at scale? It requires automation. I'm not going to go into this in a lot more depth. This is where we play a lot. And then data masking and data privacy. How do we secure data, making data accessible, but hiding information that shouldn't be visible to particular users, right? I might be able to see credit card numbers because I'm whatever. Somebody else shouldn't be able to see them. Same data set. And then lastly, implementing modern data integration platforms and management platforms. More and more of us are going to cloud. There's now a trend to go back on-premise. The reality is we're going to be seeing this sort of hybrid cloud type environment where some of our data is sitting in the cloud, some of our data is going to remain on-premise. How do we consolidate that into a single platform that we can find the data in the right place, we can access it, we can consolidate it, and we can ensure that it's of the right quality? These steps need to be built in to the data that we want to use to deliver a trusted data product. I've talked to this already in terms of cloud data platforms. Okay, so I'm hoping this is big enough to see. It was quite difficult to fit this whole workflow onto a screen. So how to create simple or successful trusted data products. I'm going to talk through this, but what I also want to say to you is when I was putting this together, I came up with a lot of information to fit into a 20-page or 20-minute presentation. So we've also written an ebook, which you can go and find if you go to masterdata.co. There's a picture on the front page where you can download the whole ebook. But the first step is understand the need. If we don't have something that's useful that people want to use, it's not going to be something that we want to turn into a product. So let's understand the requirements, go into the next step, requirements gathering, talking to our user base. So we want to target a specific user base that we think needs this requirements, go and understand what their requirements are. The third step is let's look at those quality standards. How do we build for trust, for quality? Let's put the standards in place. Let's understand what the bare minimums are that we need to work with. Let's understand where the best set of data is that supports our particular product and establish those data governance and quality standards. Then we go into the design of the product data architecture, build our minimum viable product. It's a lovely term which some of you may be more familiar with. So somebody joked, they were saying the other day, if you were an airplane builder, would you be comfortable with a minimum viable product? And I thought, well, Boeing isn't even building a minimum viable product at the moment, right? So anyway, a minimal viable product basically means we want to get something out there that's useful. It doesn't have to solve every problem, but it's solving a problem. All right, because we're then going to the test and validation phase where part of the product management process is let's understand how is this product landing in the markets? Are people using it? What feedback are we getting? What needs to change? What needs to be added? What needs to be improved? So the test and validation phase helps us to enhance that minimum viable product into something better and more useful. We deploy it and can't say operationalize at the moment. Deploy it and operationalize it. So one of the issues is around scalability. Who has a SAP user? And I don't want to pick on you. I mean, nobody really likes SAP, right? The interface is it's a bit, but it scales. That's the thing. So a data product needs to be delivered in a way that the number of users, who here remembers the CompuTicket debacle or the TicketWeb, whoever it was that was selling tickets for the Soccer World Cup, and the soccer that your data product needs to scale. So that's a whole IT problem that needs to happen. There's this concept that's coming out now that some of you may have heard of called data ops, data operations, which is how do we take DevOps practices, which is agile development, and deploy that into a data. You can't just take DevOps and move it into a data space and make it work. But how do we build a cross-functional team that's got my testers, my data engineers, my data scientists, my users. We bring them all together so we get that instant feedback and we deliver a quality product that will scale, right? And then we're going to drive it to market. We're going to do some advertising. We're going to drive adoption, do some training. And at the same time, we're going to measure what we're doing and optimize it and go back to the beginning, understand the need, refine it, etc., until eventually we will retire the product because part of the life cycle is at what point does it stop being useful? All right, so this workflow, I think the big difference between this, and I must be honest, I pulled some of this from various web sources, but what we've added into the step is that third step around emphasizing the importance of trustworthiness from the start of the process. That's the step that quite often gets left out, and it always ends up biting us, right? You're looking at data ops principles and product management practices to deliver valuable, trusted data products. Okay, so in summary, data products package data. It's consumable. It's a package. It's off the shelf, right? Trust is critical. That means data quality and reliability. Data quality means it's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. Transparency and control. That means we understand where the data's come from. We understand that it's still the same or similar to the way that it was when we first built the model. It hasn't changed. We haven't introduced biases. Our training data, if we were doing machine learning, is similar to our real-world data, those kind of questions. We're managing data privacy, security, and the compliance requirements without getting in the way of delivering value. And we're building something that hopefully will be unique and give us an advantage. Remembering that if we don't stay innovative, our competitors are going to catch up with us very quickly, right? And then I'm just going to leave my contact information. If somebody wants to email me, it's Gary, Gary, @masterdata.coza. But otherwise, yeah, I'm open to questions. Sorry? Please download our ebook. It's only about 45 pages. All right, if there are no questions, thank you.